It's still
It freezes. There we go.
Oh, right.
Okay.
I'm Simone Hansen. I'm 19 years old. First TSLR class.
I'm Kaylin. I'm a senior, and this is also my first quarter in TESL.
My name is Matt. I'm almost a junior, and it's my second quarter in TESL.
What's step 2?
I don't know. This is on the fly, man. Oh, set up a regular time to meet with your discussion group. All assignments for the module should be completed before meeting.
Can we just text each other and make it week by week?
I work regular-ish hours, but like end times always vary, which is why it's like weird on like Thursdays or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Generally like after classes on like my classes anyway, on like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I'm free.
Yeah, Fridays would work best for me, honestly. Like after 2:30 to 9 o'clock.
For me, that should also normally work.
Yeah, I'm out of class by 1, so unless I have something weird.
But
But
like
that
certain
we
weeks,
could.
you want to change it, like Thanksgiving week, you don't want to meet on Friday, because that's
I'm
dirty
curious,
when
yeah,
you're gone.
I'm curious if there's like a fire or something. Because it's like 3 days anyway, so like I wonder if she includes it, you know? Or maybe she's just like, it's online, so meet online that week.
I guess we could look it up and see if there's
Right.
something.
Yeah, I'm not that worried about it.
So basically our plan is Fridays at like 2:30.
Mm-hmm.
Make it more hashed on Thursday when we text each other going, oh my god, what are we doing? What's number 3 on our list?
Describe your case study learner and which research topic you have chosen in your case study spotlight research presentation.
So I chose an old man by the name of Victor, who I've not met, but is a friend of mine's grandpa. He's Russian as a first language speaker. The project I want to do has to do with how the syntax and I think pronunciation changes because of the influences of the first language on the second language you're learning. Is the theory I want to do.
The phonology one?
I think it's more about syntax.
Oh, I kind of zoned out, I'm sorry.
Like how you might switch up the direction words go in, or like adjectives in the wrong place or whatever. Things like that, but there's also
Grammatical
phonology. What?
Was it grammatical morphemes?
No.
Okay, cool.
Definitely not that one.
I want to say that I did vocab, but I'm not sure.
I forgot which one it is.
I know which one I did, but I forgot the whole entire sentence that goes with it. See if I can find that one.
Yeah, I did vocab.
Read the whole sentence of what you're thinking over.
Oh, so I met a young woman named Mai through the JSA, and she is from Japan. She doesn't speak much English, and so the topic that I was going to do was, is the acquisition of vocabulary in L2.
Mm-hmm. Do you have the list on there? Can I just look at it?
Oh wait, yeah, here it is.
Okay, sweet, thanks.
No, I didn't. I'm confused.
Mine was, so I'm meeting with this guy named Jose from Mexico. He's in my ESL class. And, oh yeah, I chose number 10, which is the importance of nonverbal communications to the L2 learner. So he's like, he needs extra help in that class, and he's like a very beginner in English, so I feel like nonverbal communication is probably important.
Awesome.
I did number 2, the issue of the transfer of language 1 and how it affects pronunciation and syntax in the second language.
There you go.
Yeah, I was pretty close.
It's all, yeah. But it's all good.
I had like all the information.
Go over the survey you filled out regarding your views on language learning and teaching. Discuss your answers, compare with each other.
Let's go find that.
Where's that? There it is.
Well, you get to go first then.
Or maybe not, because it says locked and I don't know how to.
That seems weird.
I have it on my computer. I definitely saw it online.
We just have one person look it up, and then we probably can remember based off of
Oh yeah. Definitely. Views and opinions. Question 1. Languages are learned mainly through imitations. Intimidation. How do you agree, disagree, strongly, vaguely?
I said.
Languages are learned mainly through imitation.
Oh, I was
I
like,
said-
did it really say intimidation?
Oh, sorry.
I just misheard you and I was like, what?
Just by threatening them.
Yeah, just like,
Better learn this.
is that a trill?
I said, okay. I said the same thing.
Slightly disagree. What do you say?
I'm trying.
Yes. What do you say now? Agree, disagree?
I'm pretty sure either agreed or strongly agreed. I found it. I said strongly agree.
Okay. Why do you say strongly agree?
Because I think that's how you acquire language anyway. Like when
Mm.
kids start to learn languages, they like babble and like they try out things that they've heard their parents do, which is why they like breed out like phonemes of other languages
Mm-hmm.
because they don't hear them.
They're not imitating them.
Yeah. So like while it's not like right away, I feel like it is kind of imitation. I'm like, that's how I learned how to do nasal vowels by like acting it up a bunch of times.
Mm-hmm.
Parents usually correct young children when they make grammatical errors.
I said somewhat agree because they kind of correct them. I mean, it definitely happens if you say like something about a parent, like will repeat the correct way to say it. But some parents might not.
I said disagree.
Your parent never corrected you on your grammar? My mom definitely did. She was like, what are you saying? I would say my older sister definitely did.
I mean, I feel like
Dude.
maybe, but like probably more like if like I like slipped up and said something that was like not something you could repeat in public, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Even if it is cute if you're a kid.
More
and it's,
more like more, well, I don't know why I can say that right now. Vocabulary. More about
Yeah.
vocabulary based than grammar based.
Yeah. Either way, I don't know that I feel that parents should do it, so I kind of just said I disagree.
It's a question of whether or not you think the parents did.
Yeah, like I really don't know if my parents.
I don't remember. I was like 5 at the time.
Yeah, that's pretty general because it can be any parent.
Mm-hmm.
I said somewhat.
Yeah. Like,
agree.
probably.
Yeah.
Maybe not. Depends on how much time the parent has on their hands, I guess. Highly intelligent people are good language learners.
I said somewhat disagree.
I said that too.
Same.
There's even like proof about that. I learned in my linguistics class that people with severe mental problems, so they're not like highly intelligent, but they can still learn lots of languages, or they can help them learn languages, depending on what kind of problem they have. The most important predictor of success in second language acquisition is motivation. I said strongly agree.
I think I said strongly agree too.
I said disagree, and the reason I said disagree is that like I've learned, not learned to completion, but I've studied languages on my own a lot, and like, I mean, I don't think that like with motivation it might have like gone farther, but like at some point I think you lose your motivation. Like at some point you just really want to throw the French dictionary out the window, and so I think that you kind of have to like put your nose to the grindstone a little bit, even when you don't want to. Like it's commitment rather than motivation.
I think I have a different definition of motivation.
Yeah, I think I do too. Yeah, I kind of had the same idea, but I said strongly
But-
agree. Yeah.
Because I think it definitely helps. Like the thing that gets you off my butt anyway is like all of a sudden I'm like, yeah, let's like
Kind of like,
expand my
like
vocab.
example, like in high school, you need the motivation to get it done, or someone might cheat off their friend. If you don't got the motivation, it's like I can just.
I mean, yeah, I
cheat.
guess you could just say that like my motivation is to pass this class and
Yeah,
it's
so
French.
then you're not
That's
having
what
the
I'm doing.
motivation to do in the second language, so you kind of
Yeah,
need that.
I mean, I guess yeah, it just depends on your definition of motivation. I think
Yeah.
we kind of agree with each other. It's just
yeah.
on that definition.
The earlier a second language is introduced in a school program, the greater the likelihood of success in learning it.
I say strongly agree.
I said strongly agree.
So agree somewhat.
Yeah. I mean, it's not gonna work super well, I guess. Like, there's like
Yeah.
proof of that.
Yeah.
I think
don't
it's
know,
But it works better than not having any second
Oh,
language.
fully. I am 100% ready to like quit Spanish English in
true.
elementary school.
I know.
But-
My cousin is Canadian, and so she started learning French when she was like in kindergarten, and so she
Yeah.
had like a French-English integrated school, and so, and then after when she moved to Texas, when she was like in the 6th grade, like didn't learn any more French at all, and then all of a sudden when she went to Paris, when she was like, when she graduated high school, someone stole her wallet. And she just started cussing them out in French, like fluently. Like she remembered everything.
I love
It's
the
crazy.
6-year-old remembered all the French curses. That's
Yeah, yeah, she was
Or 6th
fluent in
grader,
it.
but like that's
Yeah.
funny.
Most of the mistakes that second language learners make are due to the interference from their first language.
I said disagree.
Yeah, I said somewhat disagree.
I did somewhat agree, because it's kind of like with like grammar anyway. You're trying to like take the language that you had and trying to switch it into the other language was my idea. But what do you guys think the biggest mistake is? I mean, the most mistake.
I think my most common mistake, I mean, I don't know what languages you guys speak, but it's almost always been in pronunciation. I'm not saying that in a perfect grammatic way, I'm just saying that like I feel like I like sound stupider than I like, than like my syntax is, if that makes sense.
I also think it'd be like vocabulary. Like, how many words do I
Yeah,
know?
like, je voudrais coffee.
The best way to learn new vocabulary is through reading.
I said strongly disagree.
I said disagree somewhat.
Yeah, I disagree.
Like in English, the best way to learn new vocabulary is through reading if you're a first language speaker. So I think it depends on what level you are at. So the higher the better. If you're really good at the language, the best way to learn new vocabulary after that is through reading. But if you're new at it, that's seems like a pretty bad way to learn. the
Yeah, I agree,
vocabulary.
because then you don't have all of the pronunciations correctly, because like it's a brand new language and you're not really familiar with certain accents and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. And the part of learning new vocabulary through reading is that you know what the sentence says, but you don't know that one word, which means you have to know quite a bit of the language for that to work. It's essential for learners to be able to pronounce all the individual sounds in the second language.
Strongly disagree.
Individual sounds. I think I said. Let me look.
I did
agree somewhat.
I did agree somewhat, because if you can't pronounce a lot, it can be really hard to learn a language if you have two sounds that to you are the exact same sound, but in the other language they're two different sounds, and if you mix them up every time you say it, for a lot of words, that could be bad. Like whenever someone says cat and bat, like they'd be like, are you talking about the bat flying or the cat? I mean, they're two very different words, but you can get a totally different story. Like, I have a pet bat, and they're like, dude, that's so cool. Because the two words are not like so different necessarily that the context would make it that you wouldn't understand
like,
it,
I
but
think
it could
that they
totally
definitely-
interfere with conversation. But I guess it isn't like super essential.
I mean, I don't know.
It depends on how I think important the.
I understand your point. I just don't know. In my mind, like, I mean, if people speak kind of like heavily with an accent, or like they like, you know,
Yeah.
don't for whatever reason. I don't know. I just like. I feel like it's all still there. Just kind of have to like sit for a second and be like, that's what you mean.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it just depends, I feel like, how bad the accent is. It's kind of like, sometimes people talk in an accent, you're like sometimes you in a British accent, even though there's both, like, English. For some people, if someone talks in British, you'll be like, what are they saying? That doesn't sound like English. But most of the time, we totally understand it because it's close enough. But for other people, it can get very hard. So if there isn't good communication between the two groups, then that makes it more essential, I guess.
Yeah, because some people have a super strong accent and you just can't.
Kind of like how people, first language speakers, have a bad slur, and you're just like, little kids, if you ever talk to a little kid, you're like, what are you saying? Is this English?
Once learners know 1,000 words and the basic structure of the language, they can easily participate in conversations with native speakers.
I did like agree somewhat, because it depends on what the 1,000 words they know. If they do them like 100% well and basic structure, you can have a basic conversation and participate. Yeah.
I guess it depends.
It's
on
not
what
saying you
know.
have to consider like a deep conversation, but you could ask
Yeah, I said
about locations of things, probably. If you liked the movie.
I said disagree just somewhat.
Yeah.
Just kind of because of the same thing. I was like, well,
How many words?
yeah, and like what's basic as far as grammar goes, and like, excuse me, and like, I don't know. I feel like 1,000 words isn't like.
Pretty little.
Yeah, it's not that much.
I can't remember. There's like some metric which is like such and such thousand is like what's like 80% of like most common utterances. I can't remember the actual number.
I also said somewhat disagree.
And it's kind of like not stating whether or not the different morphemes are included in that.
Yeah.
Like, is ed, ing, all the suffixes, are those counted as separate words in this case, or do they just automatically know all those suffixes? Because that way they would increase the amount of words you know
Mm-hmm.
by
Yeah.
a large amount.
Yeah.
Or decrease it by a large amount.
Teachers should present grammatical rules one at a time, and learners should practice the English way. Examples of each one before going on to another.
I somewhat agree.
Let's see here.
I did strongly agree, because I'm kind of stupid. So if you don't specifically tell me, I'm going to be like, what are we doing? Don't understand. So for me, I feel like it's really important to get the different examples one at a time, so it's clear. But
Yeah, I get that. I think I just thought that like sometimes it's easier to learn things in groups.
yeah, that is
Like,
also true. Like
sometimes
having
it's just
multiple
like-
examples of one thing.
Like I know it sounds like, I mean in my mind, like it's important to know like the ways that English makes things plural.
Mm-hmm.
And I would count that maybe as one thing, but like there's a bunch of different ways that we do it.
Mm-hmm.
And some just don't change. So like in my mind that's like one big lesson. Or an arc of a lesson maybe.
Yeah,
Um,
that makes sense.
but like isn't like each individual exact grammar rule that says that
Yeah.
that
would
fits
make a
this
big
the other thing,
difference.
I know there's
So-
some things that.
right?
Yeah. Teachers should teach simple language structures before complex ones. I said strongly agree, because I feel like having a good base structure to add on to is more important than having a complex one that you take apart.
Yeah, strongly agree.
I said agree somewhat.
I mean, some people do better breaking things apart. It just kind of depends on how you learn.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think like
wanna
an
be
example of
overwhelmed.
this would be Japanese, because there's different ways like they can say what order you should learn kanji in, which is different characters. But some like orders are like teach really simple kanjis that you'd never use like in day-to-day life very often. You're not going to really see them as compared to other words, but you'll see those kanji inside bigger kanji, and they kind of have meanings in them
Mm-hmm.
that are kind of related to them. So I feel like it's more important to know like the simple ones so we can build them into things. Learners' errors should be corrected as soon as possible as they are made in order to prevent the formation of bad habits. I said like agree somewhat.
I think I said somewhat disagree, because I think you should like let them see if they keep making the mistake and see if
Yeah.
they notice it on their own, because I feel like that's just how we learn languages in general.
It
And then-
definitely does work. It kind of like depends on I feel like how it's being corrected.
Yeah. I feel like if it's understood.
How big the sentence
I feel like
And
yeah.
also what level.
I
they're
definitely
at.
said
Like,
agree somewhat. I don't know if I thought that was really true at the time.
I don't know.
Because like now I'm thinking about it, I'm like I kind of want to say that like you shouldn't like bombard language learners with like wrong,
Yeah.
wrong, and like
It's like if someone was saying like foot, I got multiple
Yeah.
foots, I probably
Have you
wouldn't
taken-
automatically
Have
correct
you guys
that.
taken 405 yet?
No.
Because she like, well, Trish, because I took it with Trish, was like talking about how there's like a hierarchy to like the mistakes
Mm-hmm.
and how like you just need to learn to let it go. Because it's gonna bug you when they misplace an article, but you really don't need to tell them that the article was wrong. Like focus more on the fact that they just completely misconjugated the verb. Like it's just wrong. Like it's just out there in left field.
Mm-hmm.
I like let the little ones slide,
Yeah.
which is hard when you're like native and every little thing like twinges your ear.
Yeah.
But like for like the overall,
You want to make them as understandable as possible.
yeah, because I would rather
as
somebody
correct
get a
as
verb right
possible.
and an article wrong rather than the article right and the verb wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, you wanna have the basic.
Like R and N doesn't
correction.
matter, but the ED or the ING you need to get right, because that's very different. If you say she are running, she is running, is more correct, but the fact that she's progressing running is more important in the now than it is in the past. Because you're basically getting the same information and just being nitpicky, because R would be weird. But, yeah. Teachers should use materials that expose students only to language structures that they have already been taught. I said disagree somewhat, because being introduced to new language structures could help them, but if you're just like bombarding them with new sentence structures and stuff, I feel like that will make them forget the past ones in comparison to continuing using the ones they've already taught that helps hit it in, I feel like.
Can you repeat the question again?
Teachers should use materials that expose students only to language structures that they've already been taught.
I said disagree somewhat.
I guess. Yeah, I guess disagree somewhat too. Because it could help them as they're learning. In the process.
Reiterate the past things, but at the same time learning new ones randomly in there. It makes it like more natural. When learners are allowed to interact freely, like in a group or pair activities, they copy each other's mistakes. I said agree somewhat, because you think they would copy people's mistakes? I mean, I think I would.
I said disagree.
You don't think you'd copy someone else's mistake?
I guess somewhat disagree because it depends on if you know it's a mistake or not.
I mean, yeah, but this is insinuating you don't know.
Well, the other thing is that like
I mean, why else would you copy their mistake? You knew it was a mistake, you're just like,
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know that many kids that are like sitting there going like, wait a second, you said can I have an bagel? Is it an bagel or a bagel? I don't know now, so I'm just gonna say an bagel. I don't know that. I think people kind of just like if they don't know, they guess already, and they don't know that it's like wrong to have. I read a lot.
Like, I definitely think the interact freely is a really good way to do it, but I feel like they would copy each other's mistakes. I feel like they use light.
No, not
Like, if one kid pronounces the word wrong, and people go like, which one's right? And I think it's a kid, because he's getting smart, and they just kind of...
Yeah.
It's kind of like the herd mentality where people will just follow one guy. It really helps for them to get stuff done, but if one person gets it wrong, sometimes it'll affect the whole group momentarily. But I feel like those kind of mistakes won't, like, stay that long in comparison. Because if it is wrong and they're told later, it sticks to them that they're one they thought is wrong. At least I think it does.
Now I'm thinking about it, I think I kind of strongly agree because if they didn't know at all the correction before, then they would have no idea like what's right and what's wrong. And also I'm thinking about like when I'm teaching my own students, because like I'm a dance teacher, and so if there's other kids who weren't there the week before or they didn't really know the correct move, then they'll always do it wrong. If like they're always looking at this one kid who's doing it wrong. So
I think the balance there is just like
The
making
teacher-
sure you come back together with the teacher who's like, no.
The teacher needs like to walk around and listen. Like, does that sound right?
Yeah.
And make sure they're doing it right. But I definitely think that they copy.
Students learn what they are taught.
Kind of.
It's a disagree. Yeah.
like, what else do they learn? Do they learn things they are not taught? I mean, it's like a weird sentence. Like, you're going to school to be taught and you're learning, so you're learning something, but you're not only learning things that are being taught.
There's
Not
so many
everything
other
being taught is
components
being
Well,
learned.
I don't even think it's like a positive thing necessarily. I think that there are plenty of kids that slip through the cracks. Cause like, I mean, if you're taking a test, like, and you get everything right, but like, guess what? You don't know, you don't know the pronouns, and you still pass the test, you're like, you know, you're just, I don't know that student, like, it's not given that if you say it in front of a classroom that a student picks it up. It's also not given that like a student isn't going to find something else on their own outside of class, whether they're, especially when it's language, because like if they just decide that they're gonna watch like anime and knowing Japanese or something, that like they might pick something up or like they understand some random quirk, maybe. Teachers should respond to students' errors by correctly rephrasing what they have said rather than explicitly pointing out the error.
I said, disagree somewhat, because I feel like doing both is better than doing one of them. Because if you just repeat, like, a better sentence, sometimes the kid won't notice what's wrong, and will just repeat the sentence, and will not remember what they did originally that was incorrect. But if the teacher only points out the issue, then I feel like they don't necessarily know what they're supposed to do correctly or remember their past sentence fully, even though they know what the problem was in it.
Well, I said, what did I say? I said, agree somewhat, and I think that's because, like, the teachers that I've had, like, they, at least when I'm learning anyway, when I get corrected like that, when, like, a teacher says a sentence back to me, I don't try to, like, what did I say? What did he say? I just try to repeat what they said, rather than like reanalyze and then like find my error and then like fix my error and then like say my sentence again. I like run with them.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes any sense.
I don't know.
Like, I get the logic.
I feel like combining both of them is really important, so I said somewhat agree, so. I feel like with basic things that they already kind of know, then they can just rephrase it in the correct way, and then the student will be like, oh yeah, you're right. But then if it's like a new concept, then they'll probably have to explain it.
Yeah. Students can learn both language and academic content, for example, science or history, simultaneously in classes where the subject matter is taught in their second language. I said agree.
I said disagree somewhat, because I feel like that wouldn't work for me.
But don't
If
you
it was
also have like
Like
language?
history, what?
Don't you also, sorry, I said language. Don't you also have like culture in your language classes?
I'm not high enough in that. But when you're doing the culture and the, wait, I don't understand your question.
What, I mean, for me anyway, I'm assuming that you're learning Japanese because you
Yeah,
brought
I
that
am.
up. That was the only reason I assumed. But like for me anyway, whether it was French or Spanish or whatever kind of class that I'd formally taken, like you could be in like French 1 or Spanish 1, and they would still have you like have the present tense, and then they would be like, on Sundays, literally everything is closed. Why? We still don't know. All the French people just sit in parks and they like it and they keep doing it because of that. And like, that's not useful to my language knowledge, but like it's something I know about like France now and like a couple of colonial countries too, because like it's like something they pass down.
They're talking about like teaching the academic content, like that's the class.
Yeah, but I'm like
history.
also, but I'm also like quizzed on culture and stuff like that is a part of my, like I have a test on Monday and I have to talk about the difference between like closed class economy and like, sounds really fancy, but it's just like shopping local in French and in like France versus like going to Fred Meyer, which doesn't like which helps my language because I have to talk about like more articulate stuff, but like the subject matter is like economics and like shopping more consciously and like, you know, so I feel, and like last quarter we talked about global warming. So like stuff that isn't necessarily at all related to like the language that I'm learning, that I'm being taught, and like my professor's still sitting in the front of the room speaking French at me. I don't know. That was just my point.
So the the history being learned, is they only saying it in French?
I've learned a
Or
little
are
bit
they
of
saying
French,
it in
but like I don't
English
have.
and then translating it?
Well, like
Because the point of this is that you're basically going to a French class that's doing like history. You're doing like the history of France in French.
well,
And I
so
feel like-
no. Have I taken like a world history class in French? No, I haven't.
Well, I'm
My
saying
point being that like every
no,
single
I'm
chapter.
saying you're learning culture things, like for example, global warming. When you're going over the global warming, is he just talking strictly in French, just talking about global warming in French? Or is she doing English global warming while translating it into French?
No, he's speaking French. I've never
Okay.
had a class for like maybe my Spanish 1 class in high school that like they started in English, but I've never had like a teacher sit in front of the room and like, I mean maybe like I had my French teacher was from Africa last quarter, and we but like we talked about racism and like what like life was like for Black people in France. And so at one point he stopped and was like, I'm gonna make sure you guys understood what I just said. Like this is what I just said.
Mm-hmm.
But he said it in French first, and the majority of the discussion was in French, and then if he needed us to like grasp a concept, he would say it in English.
Mm-hmm. I haven't taken any kind of class like that, so I guess I can't really make an opinion. I just know that if I was taking math class and they were speaking Japanese at the level I'm at right now, I wouldn't get it at all. I'd be like, what are you doing? I mean, I get the numbers that are written in math, but I wouldn't.
Yeah, I mean maybe that is just. I mean I feel fortunate to have that. I don't know that it's. I don't know that it would help you or hinder you, but.
Like I feel like that's like in the higher level classes once you like know the language. You know, like that's like the 300 to 400 level. I feel.
Well, this was 100s. Like my 103 class was the class that we talked about, like racial inequality and global warming in.
Mm-hmm.
So.
I think my class is something like that.
I mean, and it's different,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I don't know. I've never been in the Japanese department here or anywhere actually. So it's just like, I mean, maybe I don't know. And I mean, I honestly think the reason he brought up like racial inequality is because he was from a colonial power in France, and so he was just like, I'm gonna talk about this because like it bothers me, and I'm like, yeah. You do, you do you.
Classrooms are good places to learn about languages, but not for learning how to use a language. I said, agree somewhat, because most people say the best way to learn a language is to go to, like, the country where everybody's speaking it, in comparison to, like, classroom or learning, like, about and the different words and stuff. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like just having more practice using it outside of the classroom is probably more effective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually have motivation to practice it with other people.
I mean, I feel like it's, like, good, but I feel like other places are better. That was our last question.
Yeah, that's.
Is there anything else on the?
I think there's a few more.
Yeah.
Okay. Take 5 minutes to think about the videos English Mania and how language transformed humanity. Write down 3 things that amazed you, 2 things that were confusing,
What if
and
nothing's
1
confusing?
more thing you disagreed with.
What are you supposed to write if nothing's confusing? You have to lie? Is it confusing the fact that they think something's confusing? Could that be a confusing thing to write down?
Well, I didn't look at this beforehand, so
really
I haven't
did
seen these videos
I've
for
seen
a hot second.
one of them, I think.
I've seen both of them, but I watched them like 2 days ago, so I don't remember them very well. I remember one thing from English Mania, the giant mass English lesson in China. That was wild.
I would definitely have not seen that.
Wait, which one was the English Mania
The
one?
one that says English Mania. It's a white man.
It's the one where they talk about how like English is like the language that everyone learns. Like everyone learns English, and that
I did watch
like
that.
it's like everyone's second language now because it's like lingua franca for like a lot of places, and people want, and even if it's not, people want to learn English because it's the language of business. And so if you want a job, English makes you marketable in other places. And like, and that just kind of like feeds the beast. Because if English will make you more successful, you'll learn English, and then when more people learn English, more people know English, which just compounds English's like necessity in like the world. And at one point, they showed how like Chinese people, like it's a really big thing in China to like learn English so you can go be a part of international business. And they had those like mass English lesson in like a courtyard. And it was just a guy up front with a microphone, and he was like, I will speak perfect English. And everyone was like, I will speak perfect English. And it was a lot.
Funny. Do you think there should be a formal English-only policy in the U.S.? No.
No.
Wait, should we do the things that amaze you? Things that are confusing?
Amazing,
we could re-watch the videos. But I also think we have to be out of here at 4.
I do. I have to do a club.
You do,
thing.
yeah. But I also think like I need to go return the key, or else they're gonna get mad at me.
Okay.
I think we have like a little bit of time. Well, like it's not. What is it? 53.
49.
Oh. Oh well.
Yeah, 49. We have 2 minutes.
I mean, I'm not worried about fudging it a little bit. I know you do need to get to your club, but I'm not like trying to like run down there beforehand. A little bit back because I feel like our video is 36 minutes.
Oh, is it supposed to be 6 minutes? Video?
No, I think like we're supposed to meet for like about an hour, which I mean we kinda
Oh,
have,
okay.
but,
I was like, how is that possible?
I just felt bad because I was like, if we submit this thing and it's like not an hour long, it's just like, what's happening?
Yeah.
I think it's confusing that a lot of people think we don't know that in the olden days, Indians were beaten for their language, because almost every single class I take mentioned that in history. Just kind of talk about it.
Well, I mean, some schools don't. They didn't
True.
teach it in my school. I didn't learn until I took linguistics here.
Oh, that makes more sense.
Yeah. I mean, they taught us about like genocide and all that stuff, but they didn't really talk about like the
being
language.
thing. You must learn English, go to save the Indian.
Yeah.
So that always vaguely confused me before I got into class. I'm like, is this because like your age you didn't do it? No, still today.
Well, I think
I
it's just
went
like
to a
where
really
you're at
liberal
though,
school.
because you went to what?
A liberal school.
Oh. I don't know, I think that it's probably just like where you are, because I know that like I took APUSH in high school, and I remember that like there was a bunch of backlash around like Texas in particular. Texas was real mad at everything that we taught, and they would always make us redraft every year, which meant that like none of the stuff stayed, because they would keep hacking away at it in order to keep it like eligible for like college admissions. There was a lot of stuff that we had to like cut out, or like that wasn't in the like curriculum explicitly, and then like your teachers kind of like go off the wall and like teach you anyway because it was important, but like Texas didn't want it in the real curriculum. And because the AP program has to be like on board with everyone, and then with the college board. So, yeah, I mean, like I don't know that I necessarily I had really great teachers for the most part, and but like I definitely like I think that it's like there is definitely areas of the country where I can totally see them like kind of glossing over the fact that like yeah, we beat Native Americans.
I went to school in Washington.
So did I, but like I think that like narrow is the wrong word. Like I think that I could definitely see places in the country where that would be a problem. Where teaching that was not the standard.
Okay. Should we just go on to should there be formal English in your policy?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think no.
I watched a really interesting video on it, and I should probably try to find it. But like, there was this video about how we should name English as like the first language or national language, because having national languages allows for like the progression of like schools with second language opportunities. like if we were to name English, even if it as the first language, not just a national language of like America, then like we could also open up to like having Spanish be national language, and then like that allows public schools to teach or have like specific like accommodations, that's the word, for like Spanish speaking people, or like to teach kids in elementary school Spanish along with English, and like have
I was taught
expansion
here
that was like really
at Western in some language class that English only policies tend to be about making it that, for example, government workers are not allowed to speak Spanish. Even if the person that you're working with is a Spanish first language speaker, they're not allowed to speak Spanish with them because the language policy is that everybody's English. English is the language of the country, the state. So they're not legally allowed to speak a different language.
yeah, no, I know, I was just sharing that because I thought that was interesting.
And that's why I say no, because people can't apparently make good English as the state language policy, apparently. So I don't really see how saying our main language is English would really affect anything in reality if you just labeled it. But if you're going to be making laws off of it for some reason, then it could cause lots of problems because people are weird.
I'd say there probably shouldn't be a formal English only policy because, I mean, maybe in like certain jobs, if like someone wants their employees to only speak English, and that's like a whole other thing, but like just in order to just live in the US, I feel like you should be able to speak whatever you want.
I feel like if you're working, you should also be able to speak whatever you want. It makes sense not wanting to hire someone that does not speak the language if the majority of the people where your store is speaks the language, because how are they supposed to go over and do their shop business if they cannot speak the language of the customer? So that would make sense, but it wouldn't make sense banning them talking.
I feel like English is a really like unique predicament with that because there are like definitely other places where even if it's just like two languages, like there's like options, if that makes sense. And it's like, because we do have a very large Spanish-speaking population in the United States, but it's like like there's not like a ton of overlap. There's like first generation who might speak both like Spanish and English, but like there's a lot of like people who are from America that don't, and then like people who are from, you know, Latin America who do.
So we're
But there's
going
not
really
like
soon.
overlap.
The next one is the very last one. What do we lose? We lose a language. And we lose culture knowledge of the language. And the person whose language that was lost apparently loses self-esteem. That's what I remember.
I was very confused by the prompt because I was like, are we? No, I know, but I was just kind of like,
Yeah.
like I understand what language death is, but like it's hard to like quantify what. Like culturally, yeah, you can talk about how like there are writings and things that people can't read anymore, but like you specifically like as an individual, I felt like that was kind of weird to answer, but yeah.
Especially if you
broad.
haven't done it. Yeah, that's all the stuff I think.
Yeah, I mean, this is be the video together and discuss the reaction.
The only thing we didn't do was microaggressions, but like,
We didn't have time.
be honest, be open, be like ready to like accept the fact that they have different, I don't know, cultural practices. I'm so tired.
Good.
Oh my gosh.
Working with your case study student. Yeah.
Good. Where
And
do
then
I
post
go
any
to
questions
kickoff?
to Module 2 Lounge. So I think we made it through.
Sweet. Do we need to go to where club kickoff is?
No.